Right, I'll just get to it. The first reason people are moving out of Canada is because it is so difficult to settle in Canada. Um, you know, as immigrants, when you come to Canada, it requires a lot of work for you to settle here, because um, by the time you get to Canada, the first problem you face is accommodation. And I must tell you, even for people that have been living here for a while, they know that getting accommodation as a newcomer in Canada is so tough because of the requirements. One, landlords would ask you for history of your payments. How do you get that if you're just coming to Canada? How do you have history of paying rent? And a lot of them do not consider whatever you've been doing from your home country. So it's so tough. And if you're not just so resilient, this first problem can actually make you to pack your load and go back. The other thing is to get a job. It's so tough to get a job in Canada because recruiters would ask you for Canadian experience. And it's so surprising because Canada being a country that is encouraging immigrants to come into their country, you would expect that they would have a system that really helps people to settle. You would expect that they would not discriminate anyone. They would not discriminate against whatever experience people bring from their own country. But that is not the case. In Canada, when you apply to any job and you get to the interview stage, you get asked questions about what experience you already have. And most of the time, they're looking for experience that you've gained within Canada. That is one major problem that people face and makes it so difficult, to get a good job. Another issue with settling in Canada, is high entry barriers to enter into regulated professions. In Canada, you realize that for you to get into some professions, it's so tough. For example, if you're a nurse, a doctor, a pharmacist, or something from your own country, and you come to Canada, before you'd be able to practice as a doctor, man, you'd go through a whole lot of stuff. And it's okay, I understand the fact that, these regulated professions, usually they have to do with human lives, they have to do with the law and all that. So Canada, the system wants you to kind of, be able to relate with their system here, right? They want the best of the best. However, it doesn't make sense because if you have this, if you've set up all these requirements for people to be able to practice their professions in Canada, you should make it in a way that people who have this experience from their home country are able to integrate well into the Canadian system. But that is not the case. You take a national exam for medical doctors, there's a national licensing you'd have to do, there's a provincial one you'd have to do, and even at that, you then get to start from the lowest level. So it's so tough. And look, if as an immigrant, if you are not so resilient, if you have better options, I tell you, you will just decide to go back. And this is the exact reason a lot of people are going back. A lot of people are just, tired. I read in the news recently of a medical doctor who just packed his bags and moved to the US. And it's so unfortunate, because Canada being a country that has a lot of issues in the healthcare sector. I'm going to get to that now. That's one of the reasons people are actually leaving Canada. The healthcare system is in trouble right now. I'll get to that. But my next point, the second reason people are leaving Canada is the cost of living crisis. Look, I cannot overemphasize. I don't even know. I don't know how to explain this. It's been tough. You can, if you're not in Canada but you know someone who is in Canada, you can just reach out to people, ask them what's up, or how is life for them in Canada. It's not so easy. So when if you're not in Canada and you see people that are in Canada, you should actually, you should pity them, right? Just don't think there's money or they are picking money on the streets. No, because cost of living right now is so high that people are barely living. Things are so expensive. I have a video on my channel where I showed how much we spend when we go grocery shopping as a family of three. At the time, we were living in Toronto. I've moved out of Toronto for some time now. But I must tell you, the amount I spend for me and my family to get grocery has gone up. It's off the roofs now. It's more than double the amount we were spending this same time last year or the previous year, 2021. It's so expensive now and so annoying because people say it's a global issue. Yes, it's a global issue, but it doesn't look like the government here is really doing so much for it. In fact, the things they are doing seems to even be making things worse. For example, to fight inflation, the Bank of Canada is introducing higher interest rates and all that. But you realize that these higher interest rates are actually making things more expensive, and which is one of the reasons that accommodation rent is high right now, is because of the increasing interest rates. Because of course landlords have loans, to pay back their mortgage on their houses, and they would pass that cost to the tenants, right? And it's so crazy, especially in big cities like Toronto, Vancouver. You see that the cost of renting a place is so high now. I did a search actually for how much rent is going for in Toronto, and you'd see a one bed apartment. This is an ad on kijiji.ca, and it's for a one bed apartment in Toronto. Look, it's $2,600 per month. And the funny thing about these listings is that by the time you even try to get this apartment, for example, you'd realize that there are so many people fighting, competing, to get this apartment, and some people would even bid higher. So this place is listed for $2,600, and I tell you, some people would offer the landlord $2,800 to get this place. Why is that? It is because the apartments are not even available. It's scarce now, so it's so tough, and that is really biting on people's income. Look, the other issue with the cost of living crisis is how low salaries in Canada, are compared to the US. It's so absurd. The United States is just some kilometers away from here. I live in a city where I can drive within an hour or two and I'll find myself in the United States. But for the same job I do here in Canada, if someone is doing the same thing in the United States, they'll be earning way higher than what I earn here in Canada. That is one major factor why people are actually leaving. Immediately people get their passports, which is one reason they move out of Canada. So immigrants are coming to Canada to get their Canadian passports, which kind of opens up a lot of opportunity for them to, move to another country. So people are moving to the US to take advantage of the better pay in the US, and it's just so annoying. You look at it and you'd feel like, why? So why am I doing all this work in Canada if someone doing the same thing in the US earns higher than I'm earning in Canada, you know. This is a list of some listings in Toronto for rent, and damn, it's okay. Maybe I should move away from Toronto, because I know somebody in the audience would be saying, well, you chose to live in the city, so why not move to a cheaper city, right? So let's see. um, I'm going to change the country now to Winnipeg. Right. This is average cost of rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Winnipeg. According to Google, it says 1100. And if you let me click into this post and say this has increased by 6% year over year. So that is between last year and now, this rent has increased by 6%. You know, you can imagine how tough that would be for people living in that city. It's just so annoying, right? It's so not cool. It's so not cool. Okay, let's